Morning, guys. Dave Canterbury coming to you from the Yurt, number 35, I believe this is. It's Christmas Eve, and I thought I'd take a break outside the Yurt with my family for the next 2 days, and that's why you can probably see my breath because it's pretty chilly in here. I don't have the stove running right now at all. But because it's a holiday season, probably everybody is going to have turkey sometime this weekend. And while you're doing that, I wanted to give you guys kind of something to think about, and I wanted to show you how to make a wingbone turkey call. And I want to talk about that a little bit before we do it. I've got some pine pitch right here that I've got on top of the Pathfinder pack stove. I've been taking it off and on because it's melting down pretty fast. And pine pitch basically is just pine resin that's been collected raw. It's melted down and it's mixed with ash or charcoal, and then some kind of a substance, a fine media. I like to use rabbit poop myself, but something grainy that gives it a little bit of give when it gets stiff. That way it doesn't get brittle on you. But we've done videos on how to make pine pitch before. This is some pine pitch we've got left over from the primitives class that we did about a month ago. So I'm going to use that. And what you're going to need for this, you're just going to need the wing bones from a turkey. And I want to talk to you guys a little bit about turkey calls for a minute because, game calling is something that hunters did, throughout time. The first actual wingbone turkey calls that were discovered in the United States were discovered in Benton County, Tennessee, at an archaeological site, and they were 6,500 years old, or 6,500 BC is when they were dated to. So, game calls have been around as long as man has been hunting animals. And obviously, the more calls you can make with just your mouth, the better off you are, and the best hunters can always make certain calls with their mouth. And I do pretty good with turkey. I do pretty good with doe bleats and buck grunts and things like that. But I wanted to show you guys how to make a traditional, what's called a wingbone turkey call. And, like I said, the Native Americans have been using them throughout time, and they were commercially produced in the United States in the 1880s. They were being commercially produced, but by the 1880s the turkey population had depleted so much that they were already protected, and they were certain hunting seasons in a lot of states because when the pioneers came to America, the Native Americans had already domesticated the turkey. They understood the concept of live food never spoils. And they had already domesticated the turkey. They were raising turkeys in pens for their feathers, for their meat, for their eggs, and things like that. But when the pioneers came in, that was one of the easy game animals, in the eastern United States. And I'm talking about the eastern turkey. There are 5 subspecies of American turkey, of turkey in North America, and the eastern is just one of them. The other 4 are the Osceola, the Rio Grande, the Merriams, and the Goulds. And so I wanted to explain that to you guys a little bit today. And when we're talking about the turkey, understand, that the reason there's a turkey season is because we decimated the population of turkeys long ago. Like I said, the Native Americans had domesticated them in 200 BC from archaeological records and finds. But, once the pioneers came into America and discovered that there was so many turkeys that they were just there for the killing, and there was so much meat on that bird, and they were so plentiful, like deer, they just slaughtered them into extinction. Market hunters and things like that to feed, the villages and things like that just decimated the population, just like the American bison in this area, just like the elk used to be very, very non-existent in this area, but now they're in Kentucky and Tennessee again. So the eastern turkey has been protected for a long time. There's regulated hunting seasons and things like that for turkey still yet today, but they're a beautiful bird and they're fun to hunt, and they're fun to call in. And I want to talk to you guys about making a turkey call today, but just to kind of give you an example of how the turkey was decimated so quickly in the United States real quick, as a conservation or conserving resources discussion. Like I said, they were domesticated by the Native Americans in 200 BC. But by the late 1800s, if you look at, the archaeological record and you look at certain diaries and journals and things like that, that turkeys were hunted very, very prominently. Not as much as deer, but almost as much as deer. But then by 1803, if you look at the journals of Lewis and Clark and all the animals that they killed during their journey, there were only 9 turkey that they killed during that journey in 1803. So that tells you that, between that early 1700s period to the early 1800s, just 100 years difference there. the turkey was almost annihilated. So it's very important for us to conserve our resources, and live food never spoils is a way to conserve resources. We talked about that the other day in a squirrel video. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to make a wingbone turkey call. Most of the wingbone turkey calls that were excavated from the site in Benton County, Tennessee, were what's called double wingbone calls. And a turkey wing has 3 bones. It has the bone that connects to the body, and then it has 2 bones in the wing that are side by side. Generally, those 2 bones are what you use to make your turkey call. And what you'll do is, I'm going to show you these 2 bones. I've already processed these 2 bones for the most part. And what you have is you have the 2 smaller leg bones or wing bones here. And what I've done is I've just cut the ends off both sides. I've cleaned the marrow out by boiling them and then reaming the marrow out with just a piece of paper clip or a nail or something like that. I think I might have used a paper clip. And what you want is you've got a flat end of this bone and you have a rounded end of this smaller bone. And you want the rounded end of that bone to fit into this side. So you might have to do some trimming to make that happen. You can see this is a little bit, this won't hardly fit in there. So I'm going to take my multi-tool out, and I really haven't done anything with this except bring the raw bones out here. But I've done all of this with my multi-tool so far. And I'm going to take my multi-tool and I'm going to trim that bone back just a little bit. And I don't want to trim the flat side. I want to trim the bigger side. So I'm just going to put it on my knee here and I'm going to trim it down. You want a tight, airtight seal in that bone when you're done. But you got to be careful because turkey bones can get brittle. Okay, so what you're looking for is a fit very much like this, okay? And this end here, you're not going to want that jagged. You want that good and flat. So what we're going to do with this just quickie deal here is I'm going to take some of this bank line cordage and I'm going to dip it into this hot pine tar or pine pitch, and I'm just going to put it on this bone just like this. And I'll bring this camera in a little bit closer so you guys can see exactly what I'm doing here. And I'm just taking this stuff on this piece of bank line and just putting it around here in a circle, kind of like an O-ring if that's what you want to call it. But I don't want to get any of it inside the bone itself, so I got to be careful with that too. And then I want to place that in there and basically cover that in so I create a seal. And then I'll paint some more on there just to make sure that I've got exactly what I need and I've got a good tight seal, because you need a good airtight seal on this thing for this to work properly for you. And while it's still soft and pliable, you can work it around with your hands a little bit and smear it in there real good. It's really a simple process, to tell you the truth. I'm going to take this off the burner, off the pack stove here, and I'm going to take this pack stove off, close this up because I don't think we're going to need any more of this pine pitch. I'm going to let this pitch dry just a little bit here until it's not going to burn me, and then while it's still pliable, I'm going to kind of squeeze it in a little bit around that caul, just like this. There we go. Now I got a little spot right there I can see where I just want a little bit more to make sure I got a good seal right there. I'm going to go ahead and paint just a little bit more on there right there at the top of that larger bone, just like that. Okay. Now while this is still pliable, you know, I thought I'd take a piece of this bank line. That's why I used this piece right here, and I'm just going to kind of wrap it around this while it's still soft and pliable like this. In opposite directions, just like this. And then I'm going to tie that, once I get around to this other side, I'm just going to tie that off. Then I'm going to coat that again with pitch. I'm going to coat that whole thing right there with pitch. Okay. And I'll go ahead and tie a square knot in that right there. And these 2 tags are just going to give me something to hang this turkey caul off of my bag or something, but it will also help create a better seal on this caul. I'll just cut myself another small piece of this bank line to use for a paintbrush, so to speak. Didn't quite cut it. There we go. Well, I still got this pine pitch is still fairly soft, or somewhat soft anyway. I want to get a hunk of it on here and spread it on this real good. And now it's getting to the point where it's cool enough that I can kind of spread it around my fingers and smush it into the cracks and crannies here. Keep that out of the way here. And this stuff, you can melt this pitch over and over again. Not a problem. Sticky stuff, let me tell you. Just want to get a good coating around that bank line. Just like that. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Okay. Leave myself a couple of tails there. Now, the next step in the game here, kind of got my tin warped out a little bit here from the heat. You can have that. Now the next step in this project, I'll just go ahead and tie this off real quick into a loop. And that's just going to give me a connection loop, is basically all that is. To be able to hang that off my shooting bag strap or whatever. Now I want to get this part of it here, I want to get that pretty well evened out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my file and do that. And I'm just going to make sure that that's good and flat. There we go. But I don't want any air leaks right here. Okay, there we go. Well, now this thing's ready to rock and roll. Okay guys, once you got your turkey call assembled, all right, you got your two pieces together and you got it sealed up tight. You've got a bell on one end and you've got a small mouthpiece in on the other side. And then it's just a matter of kind of putting your lips together going, okay? So you're going to put it in your mouth in the corner. That's what I usually do. And you know, once you start to play with this thing, you'll start to get different calls down. You know, you can almost make like gobbles, Jake gobbles. You know, you can